Hi, and welcome back to the Because She's Adopted podcast. I'm Kristal Parke. Today we have a very special guest, Stewart Parke, my husband. He may not be my first husband, but he is certainly my favorite. So join us today as we navigate through adoption, marriage, and everything in between. Let's get started. So, as you probably have guessed, we're going to chat about me being adopted.
Yeah.
I know that for me, I've often felt like it hasn't been easy to be married to me. I feel like I've always come with a lot of stuff, baggage.
Baggage. Yeah, you definitely came with a lot of baggages. But I enjoy them, so it's a good thing.
First of all, how long have we been married, Stewart?
2009, carry the 14 years.
And do you want to share how we met? You go ahead and share, and then I'll correct you along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I was working out of town. I was living and working in Calgary, and Facebook was a new thing. And I rekindled a friendship with a girl that I went to high school with. And she took me to a birthday party, and the birthday party was actually for Kristal.
I do remember meeting you that night.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. I can remember sitting out back and the girl that you were with was sitting on your lap, and we were all smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
We don't smoke anymore.
No. But yeah, we met up I picked you up in my truck, my black truck that I really liked. And we went out for dinner. After we had dessert, and I ordered a big glass of milk, and I took off our first date, took off my shoes and put my feet up on the chair next to you. And you were just like,
ew,
what are you doing?
Yeah. I'm so embarrassed for you. Like, who takes their shoes off in a restaurant?
Apparently it worked because
our middle daughter said, we were driving the car the other day, and she's like, so yeah, mom had premarital sex. And she goes, Mom, why did you have premarital sex? Because that's how I was born. I was like, I couldn't resist your dad. He was so sexy. She's like, okay, that's enough. Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely, it was good. I have a lot of good memories, but it was, I think, rocky for the both of us.
Yeah.
Those first few years trying to navigate, our new relationship and having kids. And then we had Spencer. Now we've got 3 kids and in diapers and
3 kids all under the age of 3.
Yeah. And I'm working out of town still and on the island or in Alberta.
I think for me, like, I had a failed marriage, and I was incredibly
another source of abandonment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Stuff that you were struggling with already that you had no idea you were struggling with.
Yeah. And then we got together so quickly after I'd split up with my first husband, and I certainly didn't, deal with any of that. I kind of moved on to a new relationship. And I think that's kind of how I lived my life, like just doing the next thing to keep the ball rolling. So I didn't ever.
You wanted to, though.
Totally. Yeah. I did want to marry. I wanted to be with you. Yes.
I know you wanted to marry. I hope so, at least. No, you wanted to take your time. You wanted to work through things. And I play a part. And I did pressure you and to be in a relationship with me and to choose me. It got to that point, right? So no, you didn't have any time to deal with any of that. But
and I think too that loss that was probably, the losing that marriage, like having that failed marriage really launched me, I think, back into a bit more of trying to numb that pain of
Mhm.
that rejection, that what felt like abandonment to me.
Yeah.
And I think there was, at that point, I don't think that I was a daily drinker. And I'm always the alcoholic in our
No,
story.
yeah, but I was drinking at that time as well and partying. It wasn't daily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, I mean, when we first met, I didn't drink and I'd been sober for a while. And you wanted me to, you wanted to have a friend who drank with you. And I was like, no, you don't want to see me drink. It's not good. And you're like, oh, come on. Have some drinks with me.
Well, because I didn't really understand
Yeah.
I didn't understand alcoholism. Like
Yeah.
I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I thought, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, it's you and me. We're settled down. We could have a couple drinks and,
first time that I was like, okay. And I had some drinks and
disappeared for 3 days.
For a couple days. And you're like, okay, yeah, you shouldn't be drinking. I'm like, told you so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those first few years were tough. I mean, you were struggling with alcohol. I was still, I would go 6 months without drinking and then, being with you and going out. And I don't know, it kept pulling me back into that life. And
what was that like for you? I know we've talked about it before because most of the time you knew that you didn't want to drink. You knew
it was a struggle. I can remember going out with you and like telling myself, I'm not going to drink. I shouldn't be drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And, having this internal fight and struggle in my brain, trying to convince myself that
you could have just one,
that I could have just one, or it's okay. Kristal's there. Okay. You're just going to, have one. And then once I would take my first, that motion isn't probably the best motion, but once I would take my first drink. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it was all bets off. And, it always for me led to,
other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Drugs and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I was chatting with Kristal, my co-host, and I was saying that, you never actually said to me, Kristal, you have a drinking problem. That's enough. You need to get help. Like, you never put down any ultimatums for me or anything like that.
I didn't want to lose you.
Did you know that you would lose me if you put down a firm boundary?
Our relationship was very one-sided.
How so?
Back then. You kind of ruled I don't want to say ruled, but
it was all about me.
It was about you. And I was so scared to lose you, right? From early on, I think you knew that and you pulled on the right heartstrings with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was part of the addiction mentality too, like just that manipulation and the codependency, like knowing that you were
totally codependent and and like I just wanted everything to be good and you to love me, right? Mm-hmm. So
what a terrible like feeling, like you can't, like you have to walk on eggshells in order to be loved or accepted. That must have been really hard for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that love was conditional or that I would leave at any time.
Yeah. It was tough.
Do you feel that now?
No, not at all.
No,
you're completely, and I see that was the thing when I know over the years you've asked me like, what did you see in me? And I'm like, I saw those glimpses of the real person, and it was masked by the pain and the alcohol and, all that stuff. But every once in a while I would, see your true, funny, loving self. And you're a completely different person.
You've grown a lot too.
Like emotionally?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good.
No, I've been able to watch you grow in like, in your leadership and as a business owner, all of those things, as a father, as a husband. I can't imagine where we would be if I hadn't quit drinking. If we hadn't quit drinking. And
See, it's funny. Your my expectations of like looking back were when we first got together and when the kids were little, and you know, I can remember wanting to change things and do things differently. And like, I'm there now and I am a active parent and a very, I'm there for the kids and there for you. And I still am hard on myself. Like if I would have, and I think that I'm struggling as a parent and oh my gosh, I'm a terrible parent and I need to do more and whatnot. But like,
No.
yeah.
No. I mean, I think as a parent, you kind of feel that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you feel that way naturally. But I think, that desire to always be the best that you can be, the best spouse you can be, the best parent you can be. And, I'd be worried if you were like, I'm the perfect dad.
Yeah.
We finally came to this, turning point when, and I always say that it was literally this switch overnight where if you had asked me the night before if I had a drinking problem, I would have said no and told you to like F off.
Yeah.
And then, I literally woke up the next morning. It was like, I need help. I've got a problem and I need help. And what was that like for you in terms of just, what was that experience like for you?
The road leading up to that point was getting more and more difficult, and your drinking was getting more and more. And then we had that, last final night where where I was supposed to go back to work and on the island and I couldn't find you and whatnot. And then I always look at it too, that not that I'm taking credit.
Take the credit. I'll give it to you.
That I was trying to fix you and help you and control you and holding on to you tight. And, I didn't give you the space to figure it out on your own. And it wasn't until that night where I finally, for the first time, was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anymore. I'm leaving. Like, I can't do this anymore. And like, I had made the decision that I was going to leave. And the next day you were just like a totally different person.
Yeah. I woke up and had this.
Epiphany.
It was so. Divine.
Yeah.
I feel like it was really divine.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, like, because through that whole time you'd been sober for most of our marriage. Because our drinking was very different. Like I was more of a daily drinker and you were more of a binge drinker. So you would go long periods of time without drinking and then Ty went on and, we found a
treatment
center.
Yeah.
You took me there.
And still kept my codependent tendencies. And I didn't go back to work right away. I can remember calling the company that I worked for at the time. And it was like, I got family stuff going on. And even though I was a superintendent building a project over on the island, they just like stepped in and we stayed home and you had to be sober
I had to be sober for 72 hours before they'd let me go there.
I remember I went and like got rid of all the alcohol in the house.
Really?
Yeah. Hid it or something. And there wasn't that much I can remember because you really liked alcohol.
Because I drank it all already.
But I hid it all and we like hung out and talked and watched TV and cried for 72 hours. And then
I can remember just being in bed with you and the kids and having this realization of what I had.
Yeah.
And how I had, mistreated the gifts that I'd been given, like the people that I'd been given, these children that I'd been given, and realized that, oh my gosh, look at these. I've got these 4 incredible humans that just, I'm everything. I'm their world and I'm pushing them away. I think that was a lot of, that was I know now that that was part of my adoption stuff, like my adoption wounding, and you get something good in your life and you're like, no, I'm going to sabotage this. Right.
Yeah. I wonder what changed for you overnight, literally overnight. Cause you have, since that day, you've been a completely different person working at something else, never giving up.
I think that
you just finally hit your rock bottom.
I think I hit my rock bottom.
Yeah.
I think I realized what I was going to lose.
Yeah.
I think that I had a spiritual awakening. I think that I met God that morning. And I think that I just had enough. And deep down, I was not that person. I didn't want to hurt you, and I wanted to be a good mom. But I think I was really caught up in my selfishness and all of that.
So so we drove her to treatment. I left the kids with somebody. I can't remember who.
Your mom, probably. My mom.
Yeah. Well, we figured out you wanted to go to treatment first. I just want to step back, and we went. Remember, we went over to your parents' house to tell them that you had a drinking problem and you were going to go away to treatment. And they were
my parents owned a brewery at the time.
And they like were shocked and like, kind of discarded what you were saying. And we're like, you sure? Like, maybe we just need to get you a nanny and you need to go back to work and get out of the house a bit more. And you're kind of like, no, pretty sure after everything that's going on, she's got a drinking problem. But we hid everything from them. Yeah, we did. They didn't know from everybody.
Well, I think too, when I'd go out, I was good time Sally.
Yeah. Not when you got home though.
But when I got home, no, that would.
Yeah. You were red teeth Sally. Because you liked red wine. Yeah. So no, we found that treatment center. We took you, drove you there, and you were like worried about going and worried about being around all these other girls. And so we stopped and got you a new pair of boots to go to rehab in. Your new going to rehab boots.
Going to rehab boots.
Yeah.
I got lots of compliments on those boots.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were great.
For sure. But yeah, that was the start of something great and meeting. So I dropped you off and you cried going in and didn't want me to leave you there. And some girl confronted you like soon as you got in there. And we're like,
she's like, what are you in for?
Yeah.
And I was like,
drinking. Have you seen my boots? No, it didn't happen. And then I went and sat out in the car and I like cried. I can remember sitting in the smashed up minivan from you,
drinking
and driving. And I just, cried and went home and couldn't talk to you for the first. And I had never been a stay-at-home dad. I'd never spent a night with the kids. And I think that was like the first night ever I'd stayed home when I had 3 kids under 3 that.
Well, they weren't under 3.
How old were they?
They were 4, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
At the time.
But still, I was like all of a sudden a stay-at-home dad for 3 months. So that was a eye opener for me. I was like, okay, I get why she's drinking. Yeah, it makes sense now.
And we weren't allowed to talk for 45 days on the phone.
Yeah.
But you'd come out there and bring the kids and visit me. And
yeah, I'll always remember those 3 months. We met friends that we're still friends with today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we've lost people.
We've lost friends from there.
Yeah. I can remember Peyton, my oldest, she was 4. And I sat down on the carpet in our bedroom. We lived in that house in Maple Ridge. And I sat down with her and I said, I wanted to tell her that I was going somewhere. And I didn't want her just to think that I had left her and abandoned her. Right. Yeah. I think I was really sensitive to that. And I sat down with her. She was just the sweetest little thing. She was so tender and kind. She still is. And I said, mommy's really sick right now. And I have to go somewhere so that I can get help and I can get better. And I remember she put her hand on my face and she's, Mommy, I can come with you and help you get better too.
Oh, she's so sweet.
I know. I was like, no, honey, you can't come with me. And I remember saying, it's not your job for you to help me get better.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go do this. And she's like, okay. Yeah. It was, it's really like when I think about that. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to leave. Even in my drinking, I was still a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't drink and drive with the kids in the car. Most of my drinking.
You were always there for the kids.
Yeah. Like most of my drinking occurred when they'd go to bed up until maybe the end a little bit more, but they were always taken care of. I think I was definitely a functioning drinker.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you remember I was still working out of town though? I was over on the island and I called my company and I'm like, I can't work.
Mm-hmm.
I can't work for the next 3 months. And so they, no problem, do what you need. And they kept paying me.
Yeah, I know.
Makes me emotional.
I know, me too.
You know, being a business owner now and just like, and I've, learned those values from Ben.
Mm-hmm.
But he was just like, take care of your family and don't worry about a thing. Just keep putting your timesheet in. And so like he made it possible for, us to, you know,
it took a whole community, I think, of people to support you and support the kids. And I think that's where, you know, when you are in recovery, it does take a support team. Mm-hmm. I don't believe you can get sober on your own. You know, you really do need good, solid, supportive people around you to just be there for you. Mm-hmm. Your tear.
With that one dart tear.
Just that's it. Yeah.
So that was my experience, but then it's fine. Then you went to treatment and you like had to actually go there and start doing the work.
Yeah.
So what was your experience with that and going to treatment and had you realized yet that, or when did you realize that, you know, all your struggles or a lot of your struggles and pain were, you know,
around relinquishment?
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that until probably 10 years into my sobriety.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I did. I think maybe, well, okay, what? I've been sober for 12 years. What?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you. What?
I think I might have been with you actually when you finally had that
epiphany
of like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that was, not that long ago.
It wasn't that long. Yeah. So maybe I was like 8 years into my sobriety, but I think what treatment did for me, I think it really helped me to address my behaviors and anger, making an amends to people and making a choice to start living differently and being sober and what that looks like to live sober. And
I think it gave you the tools, definitely. And
and I think it helped me to get connected to myself and get to really know myself. But also, like when you talk about the tools, I think it helped me even with just the basic tools of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time and spending time in meditation and prayer. And
maybe I should go to treatment.
I think you should. You would love treatment. It was like the closest thing to living in a dorm in college that I thought that
we were still struggling financially.
Yeah.
And we were living paycheck to paycheck. And I was still working out of town. And then, I can remember we were like going to meetings together and stuff like that. And you were still working on yourself. And I kind of stepped back and then we I got the opportunity to transfer to the Okanagan.
Yeah.
And so, and like, was quite recent, or quite um quick after you got out of treatment.
Yeah.
And then we like packed up everything and moved to Kelowna. And I can remember those first couple of years was just like, even more of a struggle because I was making less money being in the office. And I had put on a bunch of weight and I didn't like myself. And we came to Kelowna and it wasn't easy here. And then we didn't have
the
support. My parents weren't here. All your people from
my hometown community that
and recovery and stuff like that,
yeah.
right? Like you had met some strong women in recovery in Maple Ridge.
Yeah.
No, I remember it not being easy.
Yeah, it's interesting from your perspective because it's your perspective as the provider, and my perspective is always as like this emotional being and what it was like emotionally, right? But you're, obviously you were the provider that was all on your shoulders. And I know in recovery too, like it was, like you get rid of the alcohol, but then, I had some serious mental health stuff that I was facing as well. And I'd have months of terrible depression.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't want to leave the house or shower. Sorry about that.
I hated that.
Yeah. And terrible anxiety, all of those things. So it wasn't, I mean, I always think the alcohol compounds everything, right? Like it makes it's like throwing a match on, or throwing gasoline on already a garbage fire. And
I think for me too, it was maybe a bit of a struggle because you weren't the problem anymore, right? Like up until that point, it was kind of like we could focus on you being the fuck up, and I would continually swoop in to fix things and take care of things. And then you got sober and you got stronger, healthier, and we're working on yourself. And I was kind of, just flailing in life because I didn't keep working on myself.
Yeah. Like I think when I was in my active addiction, we certainly had roles. Like I was the screw up. I was the weak one. I was the problem. Red Tooth Sally.
Yeah.
And you were the hero.
Yeah.
You would come in and make everything okay and fix everything. And then I do remember when I did get sober and I got well and I was working on myself, despite the mental health stuff. Like, yes, those were difficult times, but I was still constantly moving towards bettering myself. I feel like you didn't really know your place in the relationship anymore because I didn't need you to come rescue me anymore. And I can remember you having, it's like you would try to assume that role as the hero sometimes, but in doing that, you would almost like push me down a little bit, like try to remind me of like who I was or what I did in the past. And I think it was just trying to really work that out and figure out where we fit into the relationship and how the relationship, what roles we were in the relationship. And I think, it was a little bit of growing pains for you.
Well, and we were living together too.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You'd been out of town. The first part
of our marriage, I was out of town for 2 weeks and I'd come home for 3 days and then leave again.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we were living together full time.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yeah.
A lot of growing pains with that.
So you said that you weren't working on yourself. I think one of my biggest complaints in our marriage was that I felt like I was always doing the work to get better, be the best version of myself that I could be. And I felt like you would just sit back and ride on my coattails of healing.
Well,
because you got to benefit from it.
You needed the most work, though.
Stop.
Yeah, it was a tough time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a hard time.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember when it changed either. Because it did change and things started to get better and our relationship got so much stronger and better.
What was that? It was probably all the work I was doing.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
I think we found our groove.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too was I think this is directly related to my adoption stuff too, is that I never felt safe in the relationship in terms of that you were always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I had this belief that everybody was going to let me down. Everyone eventually was going to get tired of me and they were going to leave, whether it be friends or romantic relationships or family members. But I think one of the beautiful things about being in relationship with you has been your relentless, unconditional love for me. And you constantly were like, I don't care. You're not going to get rid of me. I'm going to love you, whether you deserve it or whether you're behaving good or bad, or, you made a choice that every day you were going to love me, and regardless of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what that did for me was it created such a safety for me. And all of that time that I spent trying to sabotage our marriage, which I spent a lot of time trying to sabotage our marriage, let's be honest. I think I recognized that didn't work anymore, that I didn't need to do that anymore because you weren't going to leave. You weren't. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't that I was treating you poorly or taking advantage of your kindness and your unconditional love. I think that that I just was in a place where I could receive love from you and feel safe in the relationship and know that you weren't going to take off on me.
I still think you struggle with that once in a while.
Really?
Yeah. There's still times where you're like, do you even love me anymore? Yes, I do. Not going anywhere.
Yeah.
15 years, 3 teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that just, I think, all still ties back into,
that fear of abandonment. Fear of rejection.
Yeah.
All of that. When did you notice that I started to have more of an epiphany around how being adopted had affected me? Like when we've talked about my adoption, we've talked about my adoption a lot. You've walked through a lot of it with me.
I knew you felt abandoned, like from early on. And then, like, I can remember, at the beginning of a relationship, talking about you being adopted and the fact that you felt abandoned. But I don't think you tied that to everything that you were still dealing with, today, and the drinking and all the, stuff. I don't think you, in your mind, it was as big of an issue as it really was up until, just in the last few years.
Yeah. Like probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah. Where you had that epiphany.
So I think what it was I think I read a book. It was called Adoption Healing. And I think for the first time I really felt like somebody was able to put words to all the things I'd been feeling.
Mm.
And I felt for the first time like I was validated in, feelings other than just gratitude for being adopted. Um, there was things that, as an adopted person, you're told, like, oh, well, your birth mother loved you so much that she gave you up for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really confusing thing to reconcile in your mind, because love equals giving someone away, or giving, or like letting go of that. Giving your child away. It was a really, it didn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so there was lots of things like that where I just kind of was able to look at things in a different way.
I can remember even saying to you as well, just with like, with Myron and Fern and your adoptive family, I can remember like you being upset about being adopted, but I kind of had that, well, like, look at the life you've had and look at the life you've given. Like, you shouldn't have those feelings.
Yeah.
I can remember saying that to you.
Yeah.
You should be happy. Looking at it now is, yes, very dismissing for sure. Are you having a realization right now?
No, I'm just thinking back. Yeah. Well, and I think too, the book, The Primal Wound, and then there's this.
Is that the book you read, The Primal Wound?
I read a book called Adoption Healing.
Yeah.
And then I read The Primal Wound, and then I watched the documentary Reckoning with the Primal Wound after I had already started filming my documentary.
Did you know that there was such a, big adoption community out there? Or did you think you were all alone up until then?
I thought I was all alone.
Huh.
I thought I was all alone. And when I found that community out there, and I finally felt seen and validated in my feelings, and continually, and I still feel like the community continues to be able to put words to the experiences that I've had, and they continue to help me to feel like I'm not crazy, that I'm not feeling these feelings, and that those feelings actually exist and those experiences actually exist. That's for me been such a gift for me. And they are a very soft place to land.
For sure.
So I feel like, I feel like over the last 2 years, certainly, that I've been able to connect a lot of my behaviors to that initial abandonment, rejection wound that, I believe that has been with me since I was in utero. Like, she knew she didn't want to keep me very, very early on in the pregnancy. And
will it always be with you? There's some seriousness to that question. Like, do you think you've been able to process that and kind of let that?
I think I have a lot more acceptance around it. I think that I am able to accept what is and what has been, and what, and grieve what wasn't. I think I've been able to do all of those things. I think sometimes, I think you can go through periods of healing, and then something hits you in life, and then you're launched into like just deeper healing on the same issues. So to answer your question, I think it'll probably always be there with me, or it will always be my default.
I think it's one of those things though, just like, alcoholism, like working on yourself and talking about it keeps it present in your life, and, keeps you healthy. Right. So I think the fact that the last few years we've talked a lot about adoption, right? And we've talked a lot about being validated and the feelings that come up with it. And so, you
Mhm.
know, as much as I'd like to take a break about talking about adoption, I think, yeah, it's just going to be a constant in our life. Right.
Well, I
So,
feel like this is a bit of my life's work now,
yeah,
you know? And
by helping other people, it
yeah,
helps you
it does
for
always.
sure.
Yeah. What have your epiphanies been through this whole experience, the last 3 years of talking
Mm-hmm.
and going, because truly you've walked
Walk through this
through this
journey.
journey with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. The whole validation thing, validating, like that was a huge, once I realized that, like all the conversations that we had, you know, over the years about you being adopted and just struggles in general.
Yeah.
I can remember, you know, the moment that I was just like, oh my gosh, these are real problems. And she just wants me to relate and be compassionate and not try and fix it.
Mm,
You know, she's adopted. I'm not going to be able to fix that.
yeah.
She just wants me to be there for her. Right. So that was a huge eye opener. Um, when we were doing the filming and I was talking about you as a mother of a newborn
Hmm.
and I was talking about how when the kids were babies, how you like were adamant about us being having skin to skin contact with the babies. You talked about it a lot. Like, you know, you just want to like get the baby and that's how you're going to bond and you're going to flop the baby skin to skin on your chest and on my chest. And we're just going to, you know, love
Hmm.
that child and look deep in. And then while I was talking about that, I realized like you didn't get that.
Yeah.
You didn't get like you were born into this world and you
Handed to
know, handed
strangers.
to a stranger and, you know, put in some maternity room. And I'm sure that, you know, people were nice to you, but who knows, right? You
Hmm.
laid there crying for a week or so until,
Yeah.
so even just not even the realization that that's not what you didn't have, the realization that that's what you went through as a baby. That was kind of like, that's, you know,
You had like a compassion for
I,
baby Kristal.
yeah, yeah, for that baby. Like I came into this, my mom hugged me and loved me and didn't stop hugging and loving me until
The
like
day she
the
died.
day she died,
Yeah.
you know, as a grown man. And like, you've had such struggles with your adoptive family and your biological family. And it's just like, yeah, I've felt, you know, sad for you over the years.
I feel a little bit guilty about this next thing I want to chat about, but it was also a big eye opener for me. You know, you and I have been through so much in our relationship. I think that's one of the reasons why, too. I feel like we have this really solid relationship. You know, it's like if we've been through all this like addiction stuff, we've been through, you know, mental health, we've been through a number of things in our marriage. And I think we were feeling pretty smooth sailing. And then all of a sudden, your mom, who had Parkinson's, went to bed one night and didn't wake up. And your mom was your biggest fan. And
Yeah. She was a pretty big fan of you as well.
can you hand me a tissue, please? Just over there. Thank you. your mom had Parkinson's.
Mhm.
And she really suffered with that because she was just the matriarch of the family. She was so strong. But I think what happened for me when she passed away, it unlocked that mother loss wound that I had.
Hmm.
And I know for you, it was probably the most difficult thing you'd ever faced in your life up until that point.
Mhm.
Losing her. And somehow it became all about me. And you supported me through that. So thank you. And I'm sorry. But I think what it did was when she died, it was that mother grief, like that mother loss that got triggered for me, that separation.
Mhm.
And it was such a deep wound that had existed before I could even remember. Like, I think somatically I remembered it. Like, I think subconsciously my body remembered it. But yeah, I feel like it just unlocked so much grief, and I was a mess. Like,
Mhm.
I was a mess.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't give you a lot of space to experience your grief because I was such a mess.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
I mean, there was times where thought to myself that I was handling it quite well,
yeah,
losing mom. It wasn't easy.
no,
No. I can remember being resentful towards you too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't realize that the death of her
Had done that.
had done that. Can remember thinking though that there was times too though that like, I appreciated how much you were grieving.
Mm.
The fact that it just kind of showed how much you loved her, right? And that's the way I felt about her as well. So,
I want to talk a little bit about how the abandonment and the loneliness, the word loneliness, has played a part in our relationship, because I know there's been times where I have come to you and like just am desperate for connection with you.
mhm,
And I've expressed to you that that I'm lonely.
mhm.
And you're like, how the heck can you possibly be lonely? I'm here all the
We've
time.
spent every minute together
Yeah.
for the last 5 days,
Yeah.
and I keep rattling. We did this, we did that, we did this.
Yeah.
How are you lonely?
I can remember this one morning, particularly, that I was spiraling and I was going into this really dark emotional place. And I'm telling you that I feel lonely and I feel like you're not there for me. And I felt, and that rage started to come up in me. I remember looking over at you and you're sitting on the bed and you've got your head in your hand, like, oh my gosh, we're doing this again. And in that moment, I was able to connect the rage to my abandonment.
Hmm.
I was able to connect the rage to the loneliness and the loneliness to the abandonment. And I sat there for a second and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I had this moment where I realized I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to like, because what it was that I think that morning you didn't have the coffee with me. You were going out golfing and you weren't going to be available to
Yeah.
spend any quality time with me that day.
Mhm.
And I go into this place of abandonment, rejection, and the deepest loneliness that I can imagine.
Yeah. And
And
then to sabotage.
then sabotage.
Yeah.
And then sabotage. Yeah.
Well, if I blow up and, hurt him first, then
I don't have to hurt anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I've pushed him away. He's not leaving me,
Yes.
which is like, in my mind, I was having a coffee probably, and I get to go golfing today.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. And meanwhile, I'm like, I want to die because I feel so lonely, because the loneliness is unbearable for me. And truly, like, when I don't even exaggerate, like, it would take me to such deep and dark places. Anyhow, I just remember realizing, okay, what's the antidote for loneliness? In my mind, I had that thought, what's the antidote to loneliness? Connection. And I got up from the chair and I walked over to you and I said, I think I'm just really lonely. Can you hold me? And
did I hold you?
You did.
Okay.
And
You're welcome.
And I crawled into bed with you.
Yeah.
And you just held me.
Yeah.
And I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I feel like that day something really changed in me. I felt like, because I could connect the loneliness to the abandonment and the abandonment to the rage, I haven't had to go to that rage place anymore. Not saying that I don't get angry once in a while, but I don't think that I go to that place where it's so destructive and so volatile. Yeah. So thank you for holding me.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So getting into the documentary.
Yes.
So you filmed this documentary.
Yes.
How did that process start for you?
Oh my gosh. The man that I thought was my father for 20 years turned out to not be my father. And we found out this other guy was my father through ancestry DNA connection. We had got a match one night on ancestry after I'd kind of felt frustrated with the whole ancestry process, because I ended up being the link to so many people finding family members, but I was never finding the answers myself. And it turned out that it was because I was looking for the wrong guy.
You had all these connections that you didn't understand how they were even related to you. You didn't know what the connection was.
And
which was confusing.
This whole like Italian side of my family, and
nobody knew each other.
But no one, because I had sent every single person that I had matched with from my father's, like, because they show you it's from your paternal side. I'd sent them all a message asking them if they knew who this guy Bob was, and nobody knew him. And I was like, what the heck? So decided that I was going to film a documentary and tell the story. And
so was it just like right after, in the days after you found out about Greg, that you had this idea? Or
like, I always knew that I was going to tell my story somehow, whether it be a book or a podcast.
You started your book.
I've been writing a book for like 10 years. And and I always knew that I was going to tell my story, and the story had just become so much more interesting too. And I had finally found, the pieces and the truth of what my story was and who was involved and everything. And so I thought, I'm going to tell this story. I think this is a story worth telling. And I decided that I was going to do a documentary, and told you that we were going to film a documentary. And you were supportive, like you are of every other venture I've ever tried.
There's been a few. Remember when you wanted to change your name? I was supportive of that. I didn't get it, but didn't know if I wanted to. I can't even remember what you were going to call yourself.
Georgia,
yeah. It's like, okay.
But you were supportive.
Georgia, but if that's what you want to do. Yeah, no, it was, I can't remember exactly when I found out that you wanted to film the documentary, but you had met James already through some friends, and came over and we had a meeting about it and kind of went through like the process and what it was going to take. And if we were up for it. And yeah,
Did you think that it was just
I did.
another one of my things that I
For
was
sure.
gonna forget about?
Yeah, I think it was kind of, from my point of view, like, sure, if this, keep hitting the mic, but if this is what you want to try, great. But I honestly don't think I ever thought we were going to make it to a finished product.
No.
So
you believed in me, but you didn't really believe
I didn't really
in me.
believe in you. Well, I didn't know if you were going to stick. And it was a tough time in our lives too.
Yeah.
So what year did we?
So your mom passed away in 2020.
Yeah.
In May of 2020. And then
we started this process.
In June of 2021.
Okay.
And then my mom died in
which
September.
we were still struggling. Yeah. With the loss of her. And then your mom died, and then things stalled and started and stalled, and the process. But yeah, it was, I think we both really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
It was something new. It was something exciting, and going down and meeting Greg was kind of our first taste of filming and being on set, and we loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really exciting experience. It's almost kind of addictive, actually.
Yeah.
And
then packing up the film crew and planning to go to Manitoba, and that was so awesome.
We were able to do a advanced private screening at our film studio.
Yeah.
And we invited the cast and the crew, anyone that was connected to the film, amongst, a few others.
Family and people that supported us. And
and we wanted to celebrate. We wanted to mark the accomplishment of doing this film. And because I think, we went through 2 years worth of filming. We had such, devastating loss in it. Then Chelsea and I spent months in her
and Bigfoot,
the kitty cat.
Yeah.
At her house, in the editing suite. See, I know all the terms now.
Sweet. It's her spare bedroom.
And we came up with this finished product, and you had watched like all of the various cuts that we had made. Sure. and been a part of, deciding what stayed, what went. And it was so exciting that it was finally complete, but it was kind of anticlimactic.
Well, yeah, because for you, it was like, okay, now it's
what?
Done. And I can remember, again, you had feelings of rejection, and we were sitting there, and you actually told me, you're like, I feel like I'm done here, and nobody's celebrating it. Like nobody cares that like my documentary's done.
Except for Chelsea.
Yeah. Chelsea celebrated you, but yeah, I still, you were feeling that way.
Yeah.
But you wanted to plan the screening, and I'm sorry, because I can remember saying, me feeling overwhelmed with everything that I have going on with my life and my world. And I'm like, as long as I don't have to do anything, like, really, is this what you want to plan it for so quickly? And yeah. And then,
he's tired. He's so tired. So,
anyways, yeah, I'm sorry I made you feel that way, but no,
you planned it. I understand. This is one of the things too that I think has been so great, is that you sort of allowed me to do this project. You didn't come in and rescue me. You didn't come in and solve all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, this is your thing. I'm here to support you, but I want you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you had so much wisdom in that stance, because at the end of the day, it wasn't this like thing that you did. You were a part of it.
Yeah.
But it was
thing that you
this
did.
thing that I did,
For sure.
and with a team,
Totally.
and lots of support and
there's still lots of times where you're like, can you help me with this on your computer? Or can you, it's like, you can
figure it out. Yeah.
Like,
in 2023, and I finally learned how to computer.
Yeah. Like, you're a very good computer.
Thank you.
But yeah, you planned the screening, and 170 people there, and
sold out show.
It was just, amazing. I just so proud of you. You're like, you have no idea how proud of you that I am.
You sound proud.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about it too. And it's not like, I'm not just proud that you're made this documentary. I'm proud, like, you have all these new skills. And like, and I know I said to you in the car the other day, I'm like, I don't want to sound about your dad, like I'm your dad, but like, you're living up to your potential. That sounds, however, but like, I just think the world of you. And I think that, the kids are at the stage now where they needed you. They needed a mom. They needed a stay-at-home mom. But they're at the stage now where it's like, you can start getting some of your life back and doing some stuff that matters to you. And to, not saying that you shouldn't have been a mom or anything like that, but like, you just have, I think you have so many great things ahead of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. If there's anybody in the whole world that I want to be proud of me, it's you and the kids. That really is the only
we're proud of you.
4 people that matter.
And Rocky.
The dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think it works for us? Why do you think our marriage is as successful as it is and as healthy as it is? Or I think it's healthy, at least.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that we would have had I don't think we would have what we have if either one of us weren't sober. First and foremost, I think that was just something that wasn't serving us very well. And once that was gone, everything went uphill from that point. Yeah, so I think that's one of the, I think that was one of the key things. We've been through so much. We've been through some really difficult times. We've been through losing both of our mothers within a year of one another. But I think we keep choosing each other, and we keep choosing to love each other every single day. You annoy me. Like, you're annoying sometimes.
Like, right in this moment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I love that you are so solid as a person. You're reliable. You're dependable. You're safe. You're consistent. And I love that I'm the most important person in your whole wide world. I love that you are always willing to grow and learn. I love that you're willing to listen and support me. You continue to sacrifice yourself over and over and over again, not just for me, but I see you put people ahead of yourself, and not in a dysfunctional way. Like, you do take care of yourself well, but you are truly a selfless person. You really, really are. And I admire you, and I admire your leadership skills. I think you're a great leader. But you know what they say, behind every good leader
is an adoptee.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can't follow that. Wish I would have went first. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. I mean it. I mean every single word of it.
See the way that I'm sitting there doing something random, and I look over and you're like looking at me with your puppy dog eyes. I know how you feel about me. I feel the same way. But well, thank you. And I love you, and I think you're just an incredible human being. And I knew it from the moment I met you that I was going to spend the rest of my life with you. And we're doing it. And there's like 15 years later and all this stuff. And it's like, you know, the thought of not being with you is just like inconceivable. Like, yeah, you're the person. You make me laugh. You make me better. You've made me better. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be on this journey with you. And I look forward to everything we get to do together.
Yeah.
You're my girl.
Yeah.
I'm your guy.
Yeah.
We love each other.
Yes, already. Oh my God. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on the Because She's Adopted podcast. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Leave a rating review wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.